So another thing that a lot of other SQL courses will talk about way before now is what order things happen in. So let's say let's just put this query in here. I'm going to put Control L. This one here, I think it's the same one. Oh no, we'll type it out. Select type count type from ingredients where count type is greater than or equal to 10, group by type. This query doesn't work either. So I haven't talked about the order of execution of things in SQL statements because when I was learning SQL, all it did was confuse me, right? Do I need to care? Does the select happen first? Does the from happen first? Does the where happen first? To this point, it hasn't mattered at all to any of the queries that we've been doing so far of what order things happen in, which is why I elected to not tell you about it until now when it actually is going to affect you. Here it's going to be like, this is the problematic part. I think it's reasonable for us to ask, let's say we're trying to aggregate by type, but let's say we have 600 types of things and 550 of them have just one. And we want to eliminate all of the ones that have just one, and we want to see larger macro trends in our data rather than just groups of one, right? So it'd be useful if we could say, hey, give us back all the counts that are greater than 1 or greater than 10 or something like that. But we can't do where because the where happens before the counting. So the where happens before the aggregation. So you can't say where count type is greater than or less, or is like, filtered here, right? Because the counting here actually hasn't happened yet. So if you're asking for where here, it doesn't make any sense because it can't give you back numbers because it doesn't have the number yet. And if you think about this, this is actually kind of a useful thing for you because you can filter before it gets counted. Makes sense, right? Let's say we wanted to count all of the types, but we wanted to eliminate things that didn't have images. That's where you would use where, let's see, ingredients. Right, so I have image here. Let's say for whatever reason I was trying to say where image is not null. This is a sensical thing to ask, right? I mean, I don't know why you'd want to ask it, but you could. So this is going to be filtering on the rows that are going to go into the result set. So we need another thing, another concept here to filter on after aggregation. So again, I think this might be the same because I think literally everything has an image, but you kind of get my point here. Actually, is that true? It is, but who? So how would we do that? Well, you can add an additional thing here called having. Let's see, I can just copy and paste, I guess. Having count of type 10. Or we can go the other way too and say greater than 10. So you can think of having as basically the post-aggregation where. Does that make sense? So the where is going to filter the things that go into the result set. It's going to get aggregated, and then you can ask questions about, and then you can filter further on the result set using having. So yeah, you can use both of them together. Or this is another one I had in here. Instead of saying where image is not null because it ends up being the same thing, but we could say where ID is greater than 30. So you can see that actually does modify the aggregation of it if we're only looking at things where the ID is greater than 30. So this is my maybe pragmatic advice to you. I'm not I don't live and breathe in SQL. I use it as part of it, like the tool set that I use to write applications. There are people out there like data scientists and DBAs that they live and breathe SQL. I don't really bother too much of learning the exact order set things happen in SQL because it's a really complicated decision tree of what happens when, right? If you really dig down into it. I only look at it when it affects what I'm trying to do. So in this case, it made a big difference, right? Because we need to know that where happens first and then having, and then aggregation and then having. But do you really need to know the exact minutia of it? Usually not. Usually doesn't affect you, which is why we're not going to talk about it, I don't think, for the rest of the course. But if you're curious, you can go look it up. It's like explained out in depth on the docs and in Wikipedia and stuff like that. The other thing I'll just tell you up front, I have everything here in the correct order, right? You have to have having at the end. If you try and put like having in front of where, it's going to say like, you're doing this wrong. I never remember the order of things coming. I have to test and retest until things work. And I have to look it up frequently because it's not a part of my brain that I don't know, I don't commit it to memory because it's not important to me. So I'm throwing out there that I think that's fine. I don't think you need to memorize the order of which SQL things happen. I'm probably making some DBA really mad right now, but I have so many other like Pokemon facts that I just have to keep in my brain that I just can't fit it. God, I wish that wasn't true, but it's actually a little true. Anyway.